Concern over content. 6 Dr. Seuss books pulled from the shelves. Dr. Seuss Enterprises announcing today those books will no longer be sold, will no longer be published because of racist imagery. For years, critics have said that Seuss books contain harmful stereotypes about black and Asian people.
Did you know the beloved Dr. Seuss, creator of The Cat in the Hat and Green Eggs and Ham, also drew racist propaganda and perpetuated offensive stereotypes? Growing up, most of us considered his work playful and innocent. But behind the charming rhymes lay a complicated man shaped by his time, and not always in a good way. Today, we're peeling back the layers to understand the dark and ugly side of Dr. Seuss, his publishers don't show, stories they rarely tell, and why his legacy demands a re-examination. Theodor Geisel, better known to the world as Dr. Seuss, was born in 1904 in Springfield, Massachusetts. He grew up in a German-American household during a time when anti-German sentiment was on the rise in post-World War I America. His father ran a local brewery which shut down during Prohibition, and young Theodor found refuge in humor, drawing, and even satire. He later attended Dartmouth College, where a minor scandal, being caught drinking, got him kicked off the student paper. Undeterred, he adopted the pen name Seuss and continued to contribute. That moment of rebellion would set the tone for his career. But it wasn't children's books that first launched him into the public eye. In the early 1940s, Seuss worked as a political cartoonist for the liberal New York magazine PM. His illustrations fiercely criticized isolationism, fascism, and racism, at least in part, while he condemned Hitler and Japanese imperialism. He also produced deeply racist cartoons portraying Japanese Americans and black people using dehumanizing stereotypes. One cartoon, now infamous, showed Japanese Americans lining up to collect explosives, suggesting that anyone of Japanese descent was a potential traitor. Exaggerated features, slanted eyes, yellow skin, and grotesque lips were standard in his illustrations. In fighting hate, he had no problem weaponizing more of it. During World War II, Geisel enlisted in the army and joined the Information and Education Division, where he helped develop the Private Snafu series. This cartoon used humor to educate soldiers. These projects weren't for children. They were solidifying his role in government messaging. After the war, he shifted gears entirely. The man who had once drawn racially charged propaganda began crafting rhymes, whimsical characters, and fantastical worlds for kids. But even as he changed his audience, some troubling patterns followed him. Dr. Seuss's transition to children's books might seem like a complete reinvention, but the early titles show lingering signs of his past. His 1937 debut, And to Think That I Saw It on Mulberry Street, includes a jarring image of a man described as a Chinaman who eats with sticks, wearing a conical hat, yellow skin, and drawn with stereotypically slanted eyes. It wasn't subtle, nor was If I Ran the Zoo in 1950, where Dr. Seuss's imagination extended to exaggerated racial caricatures. Africans appeared barefoot in grass skirts, while Asian figures were shown as helpers with slanted eyes. These characters weren't just background sketches. They were integral parts of the narrative, presented as exotic and strange in ways that aligned with harmful stereotypes. Geisel made some edits over time, changing Chinaman to Chinese man in later editions, but the visuals and intent remain mostly untouched. By the 1970s and 80s, Seuss was a cornerstone of children's education in America. Yet educators and parents began raising concerns. Why were so many of his human characters white? Why did the few characters of color look like offensive caricatures? And why were those voices always secondary? Eventually, change came. In March 2021, Dr. Seuss Enterprises announced that 6 of his books would be pulled from publication due to hurtful and wrong imagery.
6 Dr. Seuss books will stop being published because of racist and insensitive imagery.
The books were Mulberry Street, If I Ran the Zoo, McElligot's Pool, On Beyond Zebra, Scrambled Eggs Super, and The Cat's Quizzer. The announcement ignited controversy. Some praised the move as overdue, others decried it as censorship or cancel culture. But one thing was clear, Dr. Seuss's legacy was no longer above criticism. There's no question that Dr. Seuss evolved. After the 1950s, many of his books began embracing more progressive messages. The Sneetches became an allegory for racial tolerance and equality. Yertle the Turtle took aim at authoritarianism. Horton Hears a Who, which Seuss reportedly wrote as a reflection on post-war Japanese empathy, declared, "A person's a person no matter how small." Even the Lorax tackled environmental collapse with shocking clarity for a children's book written in 1971. These later works have earned praise for their depth and progressive ideas. Seuss used strange creatures and quirky rhymes to talk about real-world injustice, classism, discrimination, and greed. Some see this as redemption, others see it as calculated evolution. Because while his theme shifted, Seuss never publicly acknowledged his racist cartoons. He never addressed the impact of his earlier books, and he never seemed particularly interested in the communities his work had misrepresented. Scholars have since analyzed his body of work and found that fewer than 2% of human characters across his catalog were non-white. And when they did appear, they were usually stereotypes, never heroes. Dr. Seuss may have softened with time, but he never truly confronted the harm he helped perpetuate. So what exactly led to the removal of 6 classic books in 2021? One of them, Scrambled Egg Super, painted its indigenous characters as odd, nameless caricatures in Arctic dress. Meanwhile, McElligot's Pool and the Cat Quizzer contained illustrations that reinforced long debunked racial tropes. Then, in On Beyond Zebra showcased Nazim of Bazim, a vaguely Arab-looking character riding a camel, again drawn as a prop more than a person. What made it worse was the fact that these were part of stories taught to millions of children for decades, shaping how young readers viewed the world. The decision to pull them wasn't about erasing history. It was about preventing the normalization of casual racism under the guise of nostalgia. Dr. Seuss's enterprise said they consulted with teachers and academic experts before making the decision. And while the debate still rages, it marked a rare moment of accountability in the world of classic children's literature. When Dr. Seuss Enterprises announced in 2021 that it would stop publishing 6 books containing racially insensitive imagery, the reaction was swift and widely polarized. Some saw it as long overdue accountability. Others saw it as erasure. Bookstores couldn't keep Seuss titles on shelves, with collectors scrambling for copies of the pulled books. Conservative outlets decried the decision as a product of cancel culture, while late-night comedians like John Oliver countered that this wasn't cancellation. It was capitalism adjusting to cultural awareness. Still, it's raising big, important questions. Should we hide problematic stories from children? Or is there value in confronting those outdated ideas, dissecting them, and using them as teaching moments? Educators are split. Some argue that children's books shape early perceptions of the world and harmful stereotypes, no matter how old. It shouldn't be passed on. Others believe in historical context, using flawed works as jumping-off points for bigger discussions. But either way, one thing is clear: Seuss is no longer immune to scrutiny. When Theodor Geisel died in 1991, he left behind more than just rhymes and rhyming dictionaries. He left a cultural blueprint. His books have sold more than 1 billion copies, earned dozens of awards, and been adapted into films, shows, and Broadway productions. He became synonymous with childhood itself. But today his name exists in 2 dimensions. One whimsical, one uncomfortable. He gave us Green Eggs and Ham and the Lorax, but he also gave us racist caricatures and harmful tropes. The Seuss legacy is tangled, a blend of joy and hurt, of creativity and contradiction. And maybe that's exactly why it still matters. So is Dr. Seuss a hero with blind spots, or a man too damaged by his time? Can we honor his genius while acknowledging the harm? How do you talk to a child about the Cat in the Hat's sudden disappearance, or the connotation of a slanted eye caricature? Let's have that conversation. Share your thoughts below, because they could help shape the future of this literary icon. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell icon. Thanks for watching.